Let's take a listen to what the speaker said just moments ago.
Is there going to be a different bill on the floor today?
Are you going to vote today? Yeah, we're expecting votes this morning, so y'all stay tuned. We got a plan.
You've reached a new agreement?
We'll see.
We'll see when asked if they actually have a deal. Those comments come with about 15 hours left on the clock for Congress to pass a government funding package and avert that shutdown. President-elect Donald Trump, after helping kill the original bipartisan funding package, is saying that if a shutdown is going to happen, to let it begin now under President Biden's watch and not his own. Let's bring in congressional reporter for The Hill, Michael Schnell, and co-founder of Punchbowl News, Jake Sherman. Jake, you just heard from Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida. Jake, we still have Jake? We lost Jake for a minute. Let's go to Michael first, then we'll get back to Jake in just a second. It's a lot of commotion there in the rotunda, as you might imagine. So, Michael, just get us up to speed. We heard from the speaker a few moments ago, saying he's got a plan, but acknowledged he doesn't know if he has the votes yet for a deal. Give us the latest you've heard. Are we going to see some votes? What's the mood there on the Hill?
Yeah, hey, Jonathan, good morning. The expectation, as Speaker Mike Johnson said on his way into the Capitol this morning, is that the House is going to vote this morning and that he has a plan. But beyond that, we really do not have many details. The Speaker right there not divulging any particulars about what his new proposal is. He does have a few options at his disposal. He could put the proposal that failed yesterday back on the floor, or something that's developing and something that folks are expecting could potentially happen today is a short-term continuing resolution to kick the deadline about 2 or 3 weeks. That would land in January. That would allow lawmakers to regroup, find a new proposal, a longer-term proposal, but also allow folks to head home for the holidays. Senator Markwayne Mullin, who's a close ally of Speaker Johnson and President-elect Trump, was on CNBC this morning just after Speaker Johnson had announced that he had a plan and said that one of the options, really one of the only options on the table, is this short-term CR to kick the deadline into January. Again, this is a very fluid situation. It's all a lot of moving parts, but we are expecting the House to vote this morning on some piece of legislation.
All right, Jake Sherman, I think we've got you back there. Give us the latest you're hearing from a Republican Congresswoman you just spoke to and your assessment of the state of play. Are we going to get a deal tonight to keep government open?
You better hope so if you're a Republican, Jonathan, because this is quite the inauspicious way for Donald Trump to start his presidency. He has inserted this debt limit into the negotiation at the 11th and a half hour, driving up the price. What he's done here, Jonathan, is he's made it harder to raise the debt ceiling because you need Democratic votes. And Democrats know that they could demand whatever they want from Republicans at the end of the day if Trump sticks with that demand. He's driven the price up significantly. Now, Anna Paulina Luna, who was in with the leadership this morning, said they're going to try the same thing they tried yesterday, a bill that 38 Republicans voted against. I don't know how they're going to do that. I'll be honest with you. I've been doing this a long time. I'm not quite sure I've ever seen a mess like this before. The Speaker has now cycled through 2 proposals this week. One, the first proposal, which was just destined to fail, never made it to the floor. The second proposal, Trump backed, unofficially whipped it, and just it failed miserably, showing the limits of Trump's power on Capitol Hill. The answer, I think that's right. It is a clean CR, most likely. And I don't know when they'll get there. I don't know if Johnson has some magic. It sure as heck doesn't seem like he has some magic, Jonathan. I don't know that he could turn 38 votes on the House floor in the course of 12 or so hours.
So, Jake, I'll just underscore what you just said. You've been doing this a long time. You've never seen a mess like this. So let's go a little further here about 2 things you touched upon. One would be just the limits of Donald Trump's power over the Hill, despite him claiming this massive mandate as he comes to office. And secondly, what do you think the chances are that Speaker Johnson's going to be able to get this done and keep his job?
The second answer, I don't know if Johnson's going to be able to keep his job. The speaker's race is in like 2 weeks. I know it seems like a long time because we have the Christmas holiday, we have the break, we have New Year's, all that stuff. I don't know. Listen, if all the people who are telling us publicly and privately that are going to vote against Johnson, if they actually do vote against Johnson, he can't make it. Now, he could turn the tide. I never underestimate anybody. He could turn the tide. He could, I don't know what he'll give away. But if those people vote no against Johnson, then Johnson's done. That's number two, I guess. Number one, Trump's power on the Hill. I mean, listen, he does have some mandate, right? He has the House and the Senate. That's a big deal for any president. But when you're asking a party to raise the debt limit the day before, 2 days before a shutdown, it's just not going to be successful. The guy can't defy gravity in this way, although, he just can't. It's not realistic. So we should put in the broader framework of tax reform, energy, border. It's not going to be as easy as Donald Trump thinks, and everybody needs to get comfortable with that. Again, not a criticism of Donald Trump, but when you have hundreds of members of Congress who have their own political incentive, it becomes more difficult.
So, Michael, let's talk about the Democrats' role in all this. We heard from Hakeem Jeffries yesterday, making it very clear that he wasn't just a no. I believe the quote was he was a hell no. It was reported. And he seems to not be inclined to have the Democrats lend a hand. They didn't yesterday. Is there any sense they would today? What would they need to get in order to help out? Or are they just content to let the Republicans own this?
I think the first question, Jonathan, is there anything on the table that they would take, that they would see in the realm of possibility of a potential trade to support another piece of legislation? I mean, it would have to be a very narrowly tailored bill, and some of them are demanding disaster aid, so that would have to be another conversation. Assistance for farmers is another topic that a lot of folks are demanding. But this is a big moment for Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic House leader. He has said that the Four Corners in Congress negotiated that spending deal that was rolled out earlier this week. That was the deal. They are now accusing Republicans on reneging on that negotiation. And so Democrats are not really apt to now change the plan and go support something else because of the whims of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So the way that Democrats have handled everything with this spending battle and all very tenuous battles in the past is they have spoken about the issue at hand as a caucus and then decided what to do going forward, really staying largely united. So I think the big question is A, what does Johnson do now if he moves forward with that, short-term continuing resolution? What exactly does that look like? What is in there? And then Democrats will evaluate. But, I mean, Democrats right now so far have been saying that they had a deal and Johnson reneged on it, and that's been their stance.
Congressional reporter for The Hill, Michael Schnell, and co-founder of Punchbowl News, Jake Sherman. We know you both have to get back to work. Good luck. We appreciate it. Thanks to you